Hello and welcome to Section 4 of the Complete Ruby on Rails Developer course. I hope you're enjoying the course so far. In this section, we'll start working on the backend or the database and model layer of our Alpha Blog application. So far, we only have a couple of pages in our app, and we've looked at a test application where we were able to basically build the database operations of create, read, update, and delete by using scaffold generators. But for our Alpha Blog, we're going to build these from scratch. Okay? So first, I'm going to navigate over to my blog. So cd code Rails projects Alpha Blog. Okay, so the first thing we want for our blog is an articles table, right? Because a blog will have articles. So let me pull up a diagram for this. Here we go. So this is the table that we're looking at building. It's going to be an articles table. It'll have an ID, which will be generated by Rails, so we don't have to worry about that. Each article will have a title and a description. So before we start building this table, we have to look at some Rails conventions, okay? And naming is very important for Rails conventions. Of course, you can bend this code later on and name it something else only if you specify, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stick to convention. So if you have an articles table that's lowercase plural articles, okay, the model name is going to be article, singular, with uppercase for the first letter. So it's going to be capitalized article, a article. And then the table, associated table for that model will be lowercase plural articles. Okay? So model name, singular, first letter uppercase. Table name, plural, lowercase of model name. All right? And that is very important to remember. Now the model name file name is going to be all lowercase, so article.rb. And this will be in the models folder. And the controller name is going to be plural of model, so articles underscore controller.rb. All right? So file names are going to be snake case, which looks like this. And model name or class names are going to be camel case. Okay? So similarly, let's look at another example so we kind of know what's going on. Later on, we're going to have users in our application. We don't have them yet, but let's look at the model for user and the table as well. All right, so let me pull that up. So here's user. So just like article, for the user model, the model name will be uppercase U, user, singular. Okay, so for this model user, Rails by default will be looking for a users table. So lowercase and plural of user. All right. So model, singular, first letter uppercase, table, plural, lowercase of model name. Now model name file name is going to be again singular, user.rb, controller name, plural of model. So users underscore controller.rb. And we're going to see this in action later on, but it's very important to understand these naming conventions in Rails. So first thing, I'm going to close out of this. Let's go ahead and build our articles table, okay? So we're going to build this. It's always good to reference this table view so you can see what you're building. So we know we're going to have an articles table, and it's going to have title and description. So let's go and build this. To build this, we're going to generate a migration, okay? So how do we generate a migration? To generate a migration, make sure you're in the Alpha Blog, Rails, generate migration, and then you're going to snake case this. So create underscore articles. So Rails generate migration, create articles. That's it. Hit enter. Invoke active record, there is a migration file, okay? So this migration file will be in your DB folder, right here, migrate. Now there it is, the first one. I'm going to move this a little to the right. There you go. It created this migration file. So define change, create table articles. So this is already done for you. But we need 2 columns in our table, right? ID, again, we don't have to worry about. Rails is going to provide that for us. So what do we do here? Let's add title. So to do that, here's this block of code here. Remember, do T. So T dot, and we're going to say of type string. All right. So T dot string, and then you're going to say colon title. It'll have a title. All right. Save that. Now, normally I would also say T dot text. So of type text description. Okay. But I won't do that right now because I want to show you another way of adding description once we create the table. So let's say I forgot to add description and I just have a title. And I save that. And to create the table, I have to now run this migration file. So what I'll do over here down in the command line is rake db :migrate. Okay, so there it is. Creating articles, create table articles, the table is created. If you look at the schema file now, notice how I have an articles table with string title. All right, now several things are missing over here. I wanted description here as well, not just title. So how do I add that? I'm going to close out of this migration file. You have a couple of options, right? I can do rake db :rollback. What does that do? If I do that, it drops the table articles. All right, the articles table is gone. Now I don't have the articles table anymore. If I look at my schema, notice how the table's gone. All right, that's one way. And then I can just basically update this migration file. I can say t.description, t.text, and then I'll say description, save that. Now if I type in rake db migrate, it created articles. Now let's look at the schema again. This time you have title and description. All right. How about we roll this back again? Rake db rollback. Now I'm going to close this. Look at the schema again. The table's gone. So this is actually not a preferred way of doing this. So when you make a mistake, the best way is to create a new migration file. All right. So let me go do this the preferred way. So I have the title. I'm going to get rid of description. Save that. Now if I run rake db migrate again, it created the table. Now if I look at the schema, okay, so there's the title. Now I want to add description to this. To do that, I can do Rails generate migration add underscore description underscore to underscore articles. Hit enter. Now it created a new migration file. Okay, so let's look at that. I'm going to close out of the existing one. Let's look at the new migration file. Define change. It just gave me a method, right? The change method is how I'm going to update the table. So first thing we're going to do is use this method add column, and then this add column, you can specify what you're doing. First, you're going to give it the table name. So I'm going to say :articles. Okay. The next thing is the attribute name. So I'm going to say :description. And then the third thing you're going to provide is the type for the attribute name, text. So add column articles. So articles table, the name of the attribute, description, and text. Now there's something else I want to add. I want to add timestamps. Now timestamps normally are added to tables simply by typing in let's say t.timestamps. If we look at this migration file, if we had just did t.timestamps when we created the table, Rails would have automatically added a created at and an updated at column to this table. And Rails maintains those two columns, all right? But we didn't do that, so we need to add those columns over here. So I'm going to do add column again. Articles table is going to be created at, and the names have to be created at and updated at. Otherwise, Rails will not track them. And the type is date time. All right. Similarly, add column articles. I'm going to say updated at. Again, type is date time. So now I have these three columns that I'm adding to the table. All right. So let's go ahead and run this migration. Now, since we already ran the prior migration, Rails actually tracks which migration files have been run. So if I had simply not created this migration file and ran rakedb migrate again, nothing would have happened. It's not going to keep creating articles table. Once it runs, it tracks it, it doesn't run it anymore. So now the only file it's going to run is this one, which we just updated. So let's go ahead and run this. rakedb :migrate. Hit enter. Okay, so there are the three columns that got added. So let's look at our schema right now. Schema file was already open, so this is a prior one. So I'm going to open it again. Look at this. So now I have a table articles that has title, description, created at, and updated at. Perfect. So I have the table. Now, how am I going to communicate with the table? Let's look at our diagram again. Here we go. To communicate with the table, you need a model, okay? So this is the connection of our application to the database tables. So let's go ahead and create the model. And we know from our image that for the articles table, the model name, caps article, and the file name has to be lowercase singular article.rb. So let's go ahead and create that. I'm going to close these out. So under app, models, right click, new file, article.rb. Then open that. And over here, you're going to have to say class article, camel case and first letter uppercase, subclass from active record : base. Again, camel case and then base. End. Save that. So now I have the article model. You don't need to put anything in there right now. So how do we test if our table got generated? With the magic of Rails, just because we have created this model, Rails now gives us getters and setters for the table, okay, for each attribute in the table. For example, if I look at the schema again, we have all these columns. Because we have the article model now, Rails is actually going to give us getter and setters for all of these columns. So we can fill them in from the console itself. So let's test it out. So we're going to go to Rails console. All right. So type in Rails space console and hit enter. And the console basically gives you direct access to your database. And you can basically treat this as a playground where you can test out things like database connections, you can test out methods, you can do anything. And it loads all of your applications, models, and everything here. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to test out the connection to my articles table. To do that, type in article, okay, dot all. Okay, so the connection's there. It's an empty array-like structure here because we don't have any articles. Now, if I just type in article, hit enter, Notice how it gives me all of the attributes right here. We have integer, we have title, we have description, we have created at, and we have updated at, and it gives the types for each. All right, so now let's create a variable. Article equals article, which is the class name, dot new. Okay, it created a new article variable. Notice how everything is nil. Now, what if I want to add a title? Okay, this ID being nil because article is not saved yet. That'll be assigned once it hits the database. If I still look at article, if I look at article.all to see what's in the database, you'll see it's still empty because we haven't saved this article yet. Okay, now let's use the setters. So we have a title, so we're gonna have a title setter. So we can simply say article.title equals, this is my first article. Within quotes, hit enter. Okay, now if I type in article, notice how the title's filled in. Now let's fill in description. Article.description equals, we're going to say this is the description. Hit enter. Now if I type in article again, now notice how title and description are both filled in. Now created at, updated at, and ID will be handled by Rails. So if I simply type in article.save and hit enter, check it out. It generates a SQL query for us which handles this transaction. So it begins transactions, it inserts into the articles table the title, the description, and everything, including created at and updated at, which Rails fills in for us, then it commits it to the table. Now if I type in article.all, there it is, my table has an entry. It has the article that's saved there. Okay, now we did this in several lines. We first added title, then description. We can do this all in one line, and it's called mass assignment. All right, so let's create a new article variable. So article equals class name article dot new. We're going to say title colon within quotes, this is my second article, and then description, this is my second description. Okay, hit enter. Okay, so there it is. We have a new article, but notice again, this did not hit the database because I used new. So to save this to the database, I have to say article.save. And there you go. Title, description, this is my second article, this is my second description. Now if I type in article.all, now I have two articles in my articles table. All right. Now let's look at another method, another setter method, okay? Instead of doing article.new and article.save, what we can do is article.create title. This is my third article, and then description, my third article's description. Okay, hit enter. Now what happened there? This directly hit the database. We have an ID, title, it actually inserted this into the database. And why did it do that? Because the create method does this. All right, with new, you get a new article, and then you have to hit .save to basically save that to database. Create hits the database directly. So now if I do article.all, now I have 3 articles. Okay, great. Now to exit the Rails console, you simply type in exit. All right. Now that's what I wanted to cover in this video. In the next video, we're going to look at how to edit and delete articles from the Rails console. All right. I'll see you there.